Hi guys, just going to start talking whether anyone's listening or not, and I'm sure bit by bit people will start to join in. Just pop a message up, say hi as soon as somebody's aware. Okay, so I'm just going to start by saying part of the universe is like a kind, wise old man or woman, a loving grandparent-like figure, who has simply decided to share its knowledge. So it constantly speaks out while happily knowing that only those who wish to will actually be listening. But the kind universe still chooses to speak out kindly, sharing everything anyway. Hey Anja, how are you? And Sharon, it's good to have you on. I just started with something simple about the universe, and so big picture, as I've said to people over and over, I work best in seeing big picture and going down into small detail in order to help people implement what's needed. G'day Matthew. My pleasure for sharing, Matthew, no problem at all, mate. Funnily enough, you know, if we all cared enough to listen to each other, the world would be an amazing place. Last night, funnily enough, while I was dreaming, often conversations just happen while I'm sleeping. It's like my body's resting, but I'm actually awake most of the time inside myself. It's just got to that place, and I wake up still refreshed and all that just the same. And that hasn't happened overnight. It's come from years and years and years of choosing to listen to the things that I felt the universe has been sharing with me in different ways. And bit by bit I found that I just start to awaken more and more to you're able to hear different things in different ways constantly, whether you're awake in the natural like we understand it, or if you're asleep, you know, like your body's resting. So I've been thinking about a few things since my last video that I made, and I've jotted them down just so I can keep myself sort of on track a bit. But if you've got any questions at any point, feel free to ask, and as long as I catch it on the screen, I'll try and answer it. We don't give each other enough credit for how wise we actually are, and it's so sad, because how many billions of people have passed through this earth, and their talents have been wasted, partly because they haven't realised who they are and how wonderful they are, and partly because we refuse to acknowledge each other, and to rather than to speak down to each other and find the dirt in each other and so on. You know, instead of doing that, we should have always been lifting each other up and finding the gold and helping them discover the gold, and together you pull it out and take it into the marketplace so that the world benefits. I mean, a good example is all of the inventions that have been discovered and then snapped up for a few dollars and put on the shelf. You know, like we're still driving motor cars, for crying out loud, when we should be in the air or even more advanced. And even if we were still driving motor cars, I mean, they've got water-driven motor cars that are totally 100% ozone safe. So if everyone's screaming about save the planet, why is it we're screaming it on one hand and doing the complete opposite on the other? Those motors apparently are 5 times more powerful than any motor we've got. They're built in such a way they never wear out, so you wouldn't need a mechanic. Build it once, runs forever. They've got tyres that don't wear out. They've got so much technology in so many ways, and it's all just being selfishly kept from everybody. But I'm realising more and more that we've got to stop this blame game. You know, oh, my world's terrible because of what's happening out there. You know, it's somebody else's fault, or it's the circumstances' fault, or it's the weather's fault, or it's always somebody else's fault. And rarely, if ever, do we get to a place where we're prepared to admit openly, regardless of what's going on around me, I can make this right thing happen anyway. Hi, Jules. Elaine, how are you? And Suji. Pleasure to have you here today, wherever you may be living. Understand there's another human being on the planet that, even if he hasn't met you, is thinking about you in the best way he knows how, and is thinking of ways to change our world for the better so that you get to benefit because of who I am and what I do. And I believe there's amazing people like yourselves out there who are waking up to this more and more. So one of the points I've got here is chasing meaningful dreams, not glittery things. I mean, we've been duped in this whole process of, you know, having to work long hours and in order to buy bigger houses or flash cars or have a huge bank account or whatever it is. And what have we sold out? You know, think of the friends and family that we'll never get the time back to have just sat and had meaningful conversations with. We're so busy. It's all designed to keep us so busy that even if we care about those people, we don't have the time, or we've chosen to not have the time. We have the time, but we've chosen to not have the time. So as we're rushing out the door to go to our career, our kids are crying or whatever it might be, you know. Our elderly parents or something that haven't seen us in a while, they're doing their best to try and be understanding. And yet we're just saying without saying how much we don't really care about them compared to the glittery things. So I've come to the realization I would rather something given to me in an old paper bag than to receive someone's poo presented in a king's jewellery box. And how often do we miss the fact, because of the package, the wrapping, so to speak? Hi, Raymond. You know, the way a person looks or the way they dress. I mean, look at me at the moment. You know, we're in supposed lockdown, and you know, I've got my beanie on and my usual comfortable jacket. We all have our favourite thing, you know, and yeah, look, they're a bit rough and ready now. I've had them for a while, and that's because they're the most comfortable and so on. Yet when I've made videos, I've had people comment on, oh yeah, you know, look how rough he is or whatever, and then it starts to run into, oh well, you know, maybe he's on drugs or whatever the case, you know. Like, that's the people that don't seem to be able to help themselves, but to see something on the package. That's the package. So as I was saying, you know, would they rather somebody dressed in an old paper bag that actually brings kindness and care and, you know, is willing to put their hand in their pocket at a time that they see you in need? Or would they rather somebody dressed in an amazing business suit like some of our politicians and or some of the world leaders and things who funnily enough, are some of the biggest crooks in the world? I mean, we point the finger at those that are in jail for having done crimes that we understand to be crimes. You know, they've robbed houses or whatever the case might be, and they got their few $100s worth of stuff for whatever reasons that they felt they needed to do it, take from somebody else because they don't have themselves. Not willing to go get it the right and honest way. It's quicker and easier to hurt somebody else for your own gain, you know. And But the interesting thing is, think of the crooks. They call them white-collar criminals. Think of the crooks that are in the high places that we all have been admiring in some way or another, and even aspiring to become like them, you know. And some of those started off well-meaning, and so would we. And but eventually they find themselves in places that if they want to climb the ladder, so to speak, or yeah, right, Sally, choosing what matters. You know, they sold themselves along the way. We've all sold ourselves. If we're really honest, we've sold ourselves along the way in so many different ways. Yeah. So I'm encouraging people. I'm realising it myself, and I'm implementing it everywhere I can. You know, take the time, make the time. We've got to make the time. Push things aside and so on. Get rid of things that really don't matter. So it's priorities, really. Make the time for more and longer, meaningful personal conversations. Sit down with the kids and play with them properly if you've got kids, you know. Push the car around. Go back into a childlike state and actually enjoy being there. Learn to be in the moment, you know. What has to be done for dinner? It has to be done at dinner time. And you know what? I think the kids would prefer chicken noodle noodles, 2-minute noodles or whatever, over some great roast, if that only had quality time with you during the day. So the idea that, but I've got to think about what we're going to cook, and I have to think about what I've got to get for it at the shops and all those things. Sure, there's a time to do all of that and make an amazing meal. But more often than not, I'm learning that those sort of things that we think are tremendously important, especially with kids, especially with our own children, they're not going to grow up and so much think or care about the amazing meals that were on the plate, as opposed to the amazing mother or the amazing father that was there when it mattered, that took the time to genuinely care and listen and so on. And family conversation, really, we're one big family. This whole world is just a big family. We all bleed red underneath. It doesn't matter what our skin colour looks like or what's tattooed on it or whatever the case, it's no different. I mean, take the skin away and think that we start judging each other because of clothes. If we all chose, if each tribe or whatever, each country chose to wear a type of uniform or something like that, we would still fight and argue with each other over the colour of the uniform or the style of the uniform or whatever. So again, it goes back to that package, as I said. When humility stops worrying about the package and cares about the thing that matters, that's in the package. How many people, and how often are we deceived? Think of the stories of some old man that looks like a bum walks into the car yard and nobody really wants to serve him, but it turns out that he's a multi-millionaire. And it's the little things that matter, Raymond. That's correct. And then some other person comes along looking, $1 million, and they're that far in debt and so on, they couldn't afford to buy it even if they wanted to. And sadly too, even those that come in that place for whatever reason, how many people have been deceived into this whole just put it on the credit card thing, and how many of us, for the sake of earning an extra dollar today, have been more than happy. We know they couldn't afford it, and we convinced ourselves it was fine to sell them that item anyway, knowing that they're going to go away, they're going to be in tremendous stress, they're going to lose it anyway, their marriage is probably going to break up because of it, their kids are going without things because of it, and all that sort of stuff. Hey, g'day Jeff, good to have you on again, buddy. Just so many things that not only have we sold ourselves out to these things, but we've been willing to throw everybody else under the bus as well. And all for what? As I said earlier, that glittery thing. I keep trying to grasp and help others to understand the importance of living life by finding the things that really matter rather than chasing the deceptions that glitter. There's a saying that goes something like, not everything that glitters is gold, and it's true, because there's even what they've got called, what they call fool's gold. Fool's gold. It looks like gold in every way from what I understand, but when it's broken up, looked at carefully and broken up into its elements and so on, it's the ingredients that make it up are irrelevant. They're valueless. They can't be used for anything of any anything to have put your time into, even of picking it up. You know what I mean? So g'day Matthew and Nikki, good to have you on, guys. I'm just for those that have just sort of come on, you've missed certain things, but that's okay. That's life, life keeps moving on, and we shouldn't regret the things that we think we've missed, including the things that we could have done and failed to do. Looking in the past and holding on to regrets is one of the key things that are holding us back. Thanks Sally, appreciate that. Yeah, you're spot on, Doc. Another thing I'm learning too is care more about learning than sharing. How often in our conversations are we busy thinking about the next thing we want to say because we believe that what we have to say matters more than what the person who's right there in front of us has to say. And it can boil down to all sorts of things. It really is our immaturity, it's our insecurities and so on, it's our childishness, not our childlikeness. we feel like we need to be heard. We feel like we want to be recognised. We want to be perceived as intelligent or capable and all those sort of things. And it comes out. There's a saying that goes, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So nobody's actually fooling others. At times they get away with it through their lies and so on. But if you're talking to somebody who's learnt to hear, the very fact you open your mouth reveals exactly who you are and exactly where you're at. And you'll never know that they know, because somebody in that position has also learnt the humility. So in order to listen, you must have first decided to become humble. And a humble person is not about hurting others. They don't need to prove themselves, and they're not out to show you up. So they're actually creating a safe place. I've come to realise that the two major things that we need, and funnily enough that this whole shutdown is trying to create in a way, is the need to be heard and the need to feel safe. So if you've got any friends or family, and especially children and so on, judgment, ridicule, all those sort of things is taking away that person's safe place. The willingness to speak over them and all those things makes them feel unloved, uncared for, unheard. And again, not a safe place. And how badly have we mucked this up time and time and time again? So it's funny that collectively, I think like the universe has got to a point where it's saying in a way, enough is enough. It's time to bring a form of discipline or a form of restraint to your madness, to your collective madness. And it's in creating an environment in which many people are being forced now to give up things they've been chasing because they're not even allowed out the door to go do them. It's forcing them into a place to have to live alongside those in their immediate environment, within their house, their cage at the moment, funnily enough. How well they're handling that is an interesting question. It'll have to do with their level of maturity and so on. And there's a lot of domestic violence going on. There's a lot of murder and suicide and everything that's coming out of this, and it's horrific. It's terrible that's the outcome, but it's coming because of people's immaturity. The person who murders someone has got more to do with the murderer than the person they've murdered. The person who's taking their life, it's got more to do with the person who's taken their life than their circumstances. Yeah, the need to feel safe is why the masses don't want to wake. That's correct, Sandy. Yep. We're not quite ready to acknowledge our childish state, our foolish state, our uncaring state, our greedy state, our lying state, our deceptive state. You can name any of those things and it'll be 100% correct collectively. But I've also learnt, and I'll share with you soon, that there's an amazing, easy fix to it. Actually, maybe I'll jump over to that. So years ago, when you're at the fetes and things like that, or sometimes schools put them on. Remember the jelly bean jar? You pay a few dollars or whatever, and everybody gets to have a guess, and then at the end of the fete, they count out all the jelly beans, and whoever's closest gets the prize, gets the jar of jelly beans. Well, I've looked into some studies in relation to that, and the interesting thing is that they proved that if they add up everybody's guess, so their guess is their opinion, and in a way, if you can grasp it, it's their vote. They vote X amount of jelly beans are in that jar. And it's a guess, funnily enough. For most people, it's a guess, a literal guess. So even our opinions, even if they're a guess. So this is why our opinions are extremely important on one hand, to respect everybody's opinion, while completely irrelevant on the other. Our personal opinion on the big scheme of things matters tremendously and doesn't matter at all at times. But having the wisdom to know which one it is in order to apply it or to keep quiet at the right times is crucial. So with the jelly bean jar, when they average it out, all of the guesses, so the person who's most ridiculous to the left of, oh, there's one jelly bean in the jar, when clearly there's hundreds in the jar. And somebody's, it could be a child who guessed one. And their brother ridicules them. Oh, you're silly, the older brother or whatever. You're silly. See the hurt that happens just because somebody chose to voice their opinion the best they understood? And then the extreme on the other side might be, oh, there's 10 billion in the jar. And it could be a person who's got, autism or something. Or a disability, an brain injury from an accident or something. And their mum or something, somebody says, runs them down in some way. The thing is that to come to the ability to average out, to do the mathematical formula correctly, to average out how many jelly beans are in the jelly bean jar, it requires everybody's guess, everybody's opinion. And when they average it out, funnily enough, they always come to the exact jelly beans in the jar. The exact, every time. So I realised that on a global scale, we all have the answers. The answers have just been divided deliberately and spread out amongst the masses so that we would learn that we are extremely important as individuals, because if we don't have an opinion, if we do not exist, then there can be no opinion, there can be no insight. But the big scale, so that's like the small detail, as I said earlier. I'm a big picture and small detail person. The big picture is the collective mass of all the people on the earth. And if we just consider them like ants that you can just walk over because, you don't care that they exist, like, the Communist Party tends to do and things like that, use them for your own means. It becomes very inhumane, it becomes very impersonal and all those sort of things. But it has its place also. It requires everybody's opinion, everybody's guess, the collective guesses, to be able to perform the mathematical formula of averaging in order to come up with the right answer. So I've come to realise that if our country, Australia, was running the way that originally was designed to, where you didn't have these two-party politics and all of that with a few others trying to get in all the time, but rather that the people were the sovereigns, the people were the highest authority in the land, and our public servants did exactly what public servants are supposed to do. They do the paperwork for us. We tell them what we want done and they go and organise it. They ring up and get quotes and all those sort of things. If we operated that way, and we had a system where everybody, we had a situation that needed an answer, so politicians could bring that forward and say, we have this situation, we don't know what to do. So everybody would then get to vote. And then they could average out the answers until we had the right answer every time. We could, as a country, we could never make a mistake by simply caring enough to listen, to create a safe place sufficient for everybody to feel heard or encouraged to come out and say what they truly think and truly feel. I mean, as it is at the moment, even if we created it, most people wouldn't come out and say what they really thought anyway. They'd busy copy what somebody else had said they were going to say or something like that, because we're not mature enough as individuals to even have the confidence to say what we really mean. And so if you have a business of any kind out there, anyone who has a business or anyone who's running a department of some kind or anything like that, utilise what I've just said about the jelly bean jar. See, they want to treat the grass, what they call the grassroots, you know, like the supposed lowest people in the company or whatever. They want to treat them as though they're nothing, you know, they're here today and we dispose of them tomorrow sort of thing. But we fail to recognise the tremendous power in having them there. I mean, they're the ones who are actually doing the hard yards. You know, they're the ones who understand really what needs. If they need new gloves, for example, or whatever it might be, take the time to walk around and ask them all. You know, get them to vote on what. At the very least, pick 3 gloves or something types and get them to vote on that. Between them, they'll all pick the better of the 3 on average. So at least, even if there's better gloves out there still, or gloves that are, you know, are better but you can't afford them or whatever, at least you can provide the very best of what you can. Not because you chose it, having no idea what really works out there if you're the business owner, but because you cared enough to listen to those that are doing the work. They're the ones who have to use them at the end of the day. We're sitting in our office, no gloves. They're the ones getting frustrated because the gloves are getting caught in what they're trying to do, or they, you know, they're tearing all the time, or whatever it might be, you know. And you take that idea into everything that you're doing, even in the family environment. I mean, how many parents think that, oh, I'm the father, or I'm the mother, I have to have the answer to everything? Why not sit down and have a family meeting and ask every one of them, right down to the littlest, you know, what do you think? What would you do in this situation? And you'll be surprised how many times it's the little one that comes up with just, you know, the nugget of gold that the rest of you are blown away by. So I was thinking also about what's going on with the deep state lately, for those of you that are following, you know, and the recovery of children that have been isn't it hard to grasp, even knowing of its existence, but when you find out how deep this is and how long it's been going on for and so on, and you know, we're all sitting in our cosy homes and driving our flash cars and whatever, and there's kids out there everywhere just being tortured. And we've sort of always known it, if we're really honest. We know things are going on around us, and we can just kind of shut that part of our conscience down, partly because we've convinced ourselves we don't know what to do about it, and partly because we convince ourselves we're not to blame for it, and so on. But I think we're waking up. We're waking up in so many different ways, and I honestly believe that's why we're actually getting the clean out in the deep state. So I'll share with you my thoughts on that. So I believe our inner worlds, we have inner worlds of deep state subconscious. So what we see on the collective is going on in the individual. So if you can grasp that, there's a whole lot of nasties we're aware of in the deep state of the collective. But think of how many deep nasties are going on in our individual worlds. And we've been tolerating those. And because we've tolerated them on the inside, going back to this jelly bean jar, you know, each jelly bean, if we represent a jelly bean in the jar, each jelly bean has an impact on the overall jar. The jar doesn't exist without each jelly bean. This deep state in the universe is because of a combination of all of us. So we are far more responsible for it than we realise. Somehow or another, I've realised that somehow or another, the things that we're allowing to be kept deep in our subconscious, the lies that we've told, and to the point that we don't even remember we've told them, things we've done, deceptive things we've done, belief systems that we hang on to that we either know aren't right, or they're so buried that we don't even know they're there, and then we wonder why our life is a mess at times in certain areas, no matter how hard we try. Now the foundations aren't right, and we haven't been willing, we haven't had the courage to dig deep and pull out all the muck. It smells down there, you know what I mean? It looks disgusting, it feels disgusting, all of those things. We haven't had the courage, so we've stayed on the surface. But I'm realising that as any single individual finds the courage to start cleaning out their internal world. Hi, Sandy and Natasha. and Roy. It's good to have you on. As we clean out our inner world, somehow or another, because we're connected to everything else universally, when I change something, it allows something literally to change in the universe on the outside of me. So I change something wrong inside me and a child gets released somewhere in the world, is what I'm beginning to grasp. And the faster we recognise this and the faster we find the courage. See, a lot of Victorians especially are trying to find the courage to stand up against the government and so on at the cost of arrest or maybe jail or fines or whatever. And it's not that there's not a lot of courageous people out there. I do believe that probably 70 or 80% of us would go and do something if we knew what to do. But we know the answer isn't to pick up a gun and go out there and shoot a politician. It's not the answer. Because which one would you shoot? You may be convinced that that particular one's the one that needs to be held to account. But what if they're not the one? What if they're forced to do what they're doing at the cost of their children's lives or something? Who knows how deep this is running? And if they could do the right thing, they might. And in their heart of hearts, they're crying out to be understood because they haven't got a safe place to be heard. And let's say we picked another one and we shot them and it turns out they were actually doing the right things behind the scenes. They were just, trying to appear non-appropriate on the surface so they wouldn't be found out for doing the right things behind the scenes. So then we would have ended up shooting somebody that would in theory be on our side. And take away the gun, take all that away and go back to the basics. How many times have we shot our mouth off to somebody for whatever reasons? So this war has been going on our whole lifetimes. It's just surfacing in what we're currently seeing and understanding and experiencing. But the reality is, as I keep saying, big picture, small detail. The big picture of what's currently happening is because of the small detail of what each of us have done collectively, but as individuals, but affecting everything collectively. And we've been shooting off at people our whole lives in different ways, unkind things, unkind beliefs that it's okay to have an opinion. We just don't have to voice it all the time. And it's okay for others to have an opinion, even and especially if it's wrong. See, how do we get things right? By getting it wrong a lot. And bit by bit, we start to discover through a process of trial and error that, my opinion it either isn't right at all, or it's partly right, but not fully complete. So if we cannot respect somebody else's opinion, then it boils down to level of maturity. I mean, how often do we ride the children hard, telling them to be quiet at the table and all sorts of things, cancelling out right from the beginning. We've been telling our children, you don't matter. You don't matter. What you have to say doesn't matter. Why? Because mummy and daddy are too frustrated or too tired or too this or too that. Our siblings, how many times as we've been growing up have we been abused by our siblings or we've abused our siblings? We've all been part of this system. It's not the people. As I keep saying, and you'll keep hearing me say, this issue isn't about any of the people, even the 1%ers in the world that are doing the most horrific things for their own selfish gain and all the rest of it. At the end of the day, they're still somebody's mum, they're somebody's dad, they're somebody's brother, they're somebody's sister, they're somebody's uncle or aunt, they're somebody's child. The system is far bigger than the people, and the system is designed to turn people against people. The 1%ers have turned against the 99%. Because in this whole universal thing, funnily enough, I mean, what about the example of one of the well-known people from history that gave the illustration of leaving the 99 sheep to go and find the one? And you know what? If enough of us got together and we sorted this out until finally 99% of people were awake and we realised who the 1% was, how would we treat them? Would we then go and abuse them the way they've abused us all these generations? Would we be out for blood? Would we slaughter them with an absolute conviction of heart that, yes, they deserved it? We would have just told ourselves another lie, and we would have become all the beast that they were to us. The system is above all of us. When you grasp it, it's got nothing to do with the people. It's people who are living it out. The system's playing out in each of our hearts and minds in one way, shape or another. But there's not just one system, there's two. There always has been, and we've always known it. And we get to choose. We have a vote, we have a choice, a universal choice. Which system are we going to spend our lives, or should I say invest? We invest our life into implementing on the world. Will we be nasty to somebody, or will we be kind? Oh, but they were nasty first. So what? So what? How childish are we? At what point are we going to say, so they were mean to me? That doesn't change who I am. I am a kind person because that's who I choose to be. As a matter of fact, I'm a kind person because an unkind person needs a kind person to see an example of how to become kind. We learn by looking and listening and things like that. Children, from the day they're born, they start to, their eyes, they can't see very far from what I understand initially. They've learnt to hear in the mother's womb. When they finally come out, they can begin to see a little, and bit by bit their eyesight improves. And as in the natural, so in the spiritual when you grasp it. How many of us can't see very far? And how many of us haven't even learnt to hear, to listen? And then we wonder why we can't do amazing things. We're still children, you know? We're still little children. We're still behaving like immature little children, selfish. Well, actually, they learn that, don't they? They learn that when enough children steal their stuff, they start trying to protect their stuff. Then they start stealing other people's stuff. Yeah, courage is kindness. Well done, Sandy. Yeah. Yep. So I encourage you to start investigating the truths in your own existence and no longer allow the lies to exist. Dig deep into your hearts and into your minds and nut it out, figure it out. Our inner deep states are influencing the changes on the world stage, and it's bringing everything to light. As more people are waking up, it's giving the spiritual environment the permission to do what's necessary in the collective environment and bring people to account and to set people free. So we don't need to demand things get done out there. We can work as hard as we wish on the only environment we actually have full authority over, and that's ourselves. When we do that, it automatically works. I'm beginning to realise that there's lots of people worrying about these 5G towers, and with some of the research I've looked into, there appears to be good reason. However, put that to one side, and by the way, all this stuff that China's bringing in, intended to set up against us, for face recognition and all those things, we ought to be grateful, because you know what? When we win this thing, which we will have just been provided with all of the gifts necessary to utilise all that technology that was meant to be used against us to benefit us. So thank you, Mr. China. Thank you, Communist Party, because everything that is meant to be used against you is going to be turned and utilised for you when you're in the right place doing the right things. There's always a bit of a delay period, but that's because the universe is always interested in maturing us as individuals, and in this case it's interested in maturing Australia as an individual nation. Yeah, take care, Raymond. We'll talk again soon, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, so there's so many good things in store. So many really good things still coming. What else have I got here? There's just some thoughts I've jotted down, and you guys who've only come on sort of more lately, there's some good stuff at the beginning that I started with, so you might like to grab it and re-watch it at a later stage. One of the interesting things I find in all my years of reading, I've read thousands and thousands of books now, and I've gone to seminars and I've spoken to numerous people and used different coaches of different sorts, mentors and so on. And one day it just started to dawn on me. I thought, after all of these years of learning, why is it every time I feel like I've got a new revelation, I walk out the door and start talking to people, and it's as though they've all either just learnt it themselves too, or it's like I've started to think to myself, have they always known this and I've just never actually heard them talking about it? You know what I mean? I don't know if any of you guys have had that experience too. But again, I think it boils back to, as I said, when one of us gets a revelation, when one of us matures in an area, then somehow or another, like the 5G towers, we all connect. If you can see us, I said before, we're all like a jelly bean in the jelly bean jar in the illustration I gave earlier. But I'm realising more and more we are actually can be recognised as anything and everything. We're just so universal, funnily enough, that word in the meaning of the word, being able to be used in all things and be likened to all things in a sense. So how many times can we be illustrated? So in a way we are a vessel. We're a vessel. And an empty vessel can have anything put in it. So the vessel itself is important, but what is in it is even more important. So your words also are vessels, and they either carry positive energy or they carry... Sorry, my phone just cut off to something. Positive energy brings healing and health to the world. Negative energy takes it away. Positive energy, your positive words, there's a transfer of energy going everywhere. I'm realising more and more. It can't be destroyed, so it has to be stored momentarily or passed on. So again, like water. We are like transformers. So like on the power lines and so on, we're transformers. We can take an energy and we have the ability to change it to another type of energy. So kind people can absorb negative energy and turn it and use it for kind energy, further kind energy to pass on to somebody else. So each of us are a tower, a bit like the 5G. And we have the capabilities, we can transmit and receive. We receive and transmit, okay? And but we're a transformer of a type. So we can receive negative and pass on more and amp it, because the transformers have the capabilities of boosting the energy to send it on. So we can receive it, boost it, and pass on the same negative energy. We can receive and boost and pass on positive energy, and we have the capabilities of receiving negative, changing it, boosting it if we choose to, and passing on good energy regardless of what negative energy was provided to us. So the more we grasp that, the more powerful. That's again the small detail, big pictures I keep saying. It doesn't individual matter far more than you grasp. Every individual on this planet matters far more than we grasp. How do we function well? By being part of the universal. Same with the web. When you understand how the World Wide Web works, each server sort of thing stores some store some information, others store other information, but everybody has access to it. G'day, Bernie. It's good to have you on, bud. Yeah, so just, as I said, I just penned down some thoughts that I was having in the last couple of days, and I've decided I'll come on every so often and just share. And I'll go back just quickly to something I read right as I came on. Just a realisation, part of the universe is like a kind, wise old man or woman, a loving grandparent type figure who has simply decided to share its knowledge. So it is constantly speaking while happily knowing that only those who wish who wish to will actually be listening. But the universe still chooses to speak out kindly, sharing everything anyway. And yeah, so many thoughts, so many. There's amazing things going on, far greater than the few things that are around us that appear to be restraining us at the moment. So many people have been losing hope, but that's because they're focusing on they're focusing on the small piece of dirt in front of them instead of the whole field with its flowers and animals and its capability. You know, the great big paddock out there. I remember one day I saw a vision of this beautiful paddock that I used to have on a farm that I worked a number of years ago. What I consider the most beautiful paddock out of all of them, and then I noticed that, you know, as I was admiring the whole paddock, I noticed that there was a cow paddy. Then I noticed there was a few cow paddies around, but I started to focus on this one cow paddy, and it was just like you know, on a camera where you can zoom. All of a sudden it zoomed until I was standing there looking down at this cow paddy. So all of the rest of the paddock had disappeared. And then it zoomed again and I was looking, it was like I was on my hands and knees looking at it. And then it zoomed again and it was like it was right in front of my face, to the point I could nearly smell it, you know, and I could see bits of the corn and things that the cows, we used to feed the cows in. When they come in to be milked, we used to put different types of grain and things for them to eat before they went back out into the paddock. And, you know, I could see these bits of partly digested grain and everything. And sorry if I'm grossing you out in any way, but I realised that this is what life is like. We have this beautiful, amazing paddock, beautiful flowers and the blue sky and birds. And if you're listening, you can hear them chirping and all of that. But how often do we choose to focus onto the cow paddy, so to speak, the piece of poo in our life that doesn't smell very nice, it doesn't look very nice, yet we give it most of our attention? Any wonder we find it hard to be happy under those circumstances, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I was reading in this excellent book. I've got a number of really good books by this same author. His name's Jim Rohn, I think you pronounce it, R-O-H-N. And he's one of America's foremost business philosophers, a public speaker and so on. And his books just drip with wisdom. You know, this one's called The Treasury of Quotes. Hope you can see that. And I've got one here that I was reading earlier this morning, and just as I got a revelation on something, and then I read immediately after in his book exactly like his wording just lined up perfectly. So he said, all disciplines affect each other. Mistakenly the man says, this is the only area where I let down. Not true. Every letdown affects the rest. Not to think so is naive. So going back to what I was talking about, you know, with this big picture, small detail, our inner deep state, subconscious area, and the effect of that on the deep state universally that's becoming more and more relevant in people's understandings of what's going on and so on. And everything, all disciplines, as Jim said, all disciplines affect each other. Each of us are a being that has the capability of disciplining ourselves. Interestingly, we are more willing to discipline others than we are to discipline ourselves. We want the world to change without us having to make any effort. It was never the way. It was never the way, and it's never going to be the way. This is what we've got to grasp. We either choose to grow up ideally collectively, if every man, woman and child in Australia understood this enough. And it's not that it's going to happen overnight, you know. It's not even about the destination when you grasp it. More and more things in life, sorry, my paper's just blown away here, you know. Life's not even about the destination. I mean, the destination of life in the natural is we wind up in the grave. Is that really what we're looking to? Is that you know, if that was the last station on a platform, the last station on a train line, I'd be getting off at least the platform before it. How many different stations are there on a train line before you get to the end? And imagine telling yourself over and over, oh, when I get to the end, then I'll be happy. Oh, the craziness of it, hey? So, yeah. Look, I've got more things here, but I think maybe that should do for today, and I hope those of you that have been on with me have enjoyed what I've had to say, and looking forward to the day we can sit down and have an amazing cup of coffee with each other. And I'm planning on they wanting to lock us down, but I'm telling you, I'm looking into my future, and I'm planning on travelling all over the world. The more that I understand, the more I realise that nobody can hold you down. When we grasp who we've been made to be, who knows, we may wind up flying in a literal sense. And many people might laugh at hearing that. But I remember they said, you know, years ago they said that no man could run a 5-minute mile. And people tried and tried for years on end, and nobody broke it. And they kept telling themselves, nobody can do it, nobody can do it, nobody can do it, until one day somebody told himself that he was going to do it, and he did. And you know, within the end of that year, I believe there was a handful, I don't know exactly how many, but there was a handful, let's say another 5 or something, that ended up breaking it as well, within 12 months. Why? Because as soon as somebody chose to believe that they could, and they did, it changed the whole perspective of everybody else. All of a sudden, others saw that it could be done too. And they found courage, and they believed, and they achieved. And that's why I keep encouraging you as individuals. Challenge everything you believe. Challenge it with all of your heart. Rearrange everything that you consider to be right. Reprocess it. And they did it on grass without spikes. Oh, there you go, Roy. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We've been deliberately dulled down. And we laugh at people who confess to be able to move in things that we simply haven't experienced. So some people experience tremendously accurate dreams. Others have visions on a regular basis. You know, just things that, because we can't see them with our eyes, because they can't pull them out and you know, present them to us. Ta-da, here's this thing, you know. We refuse to believe that it's possible. So what are we doing? Calling them liars? Well, yeah, clearly we are. How rude. You know, we call ourselves nice people. Oh, I'm a kind person, but I call every third person a liar simply because they talk about things that I don't understand. Oh dear, we've got a lot of growing up to do, don't we? Well, I hope I've helped you all have a little laugh today in one way, shape or form, and also give you some things to think about. I care about you all tremendously. This world would be far less of a world without any of you in it. And it would be far less of a world without anybody else out there that any of us know or don't know. It's what makes this world beautiful, even with all our mistakes. But we must not give ourselves permission to continue to make the mistakes unnecessarily. We must decide to become all that we were always designed to be. Let go of the past, no matter how old we are. I mean, what was it, Colonel Sanders with Kentucky Fried Chicken? He was broke in his 60s or whatever it was, 60s, 70s, something. And then all he knew to do, he knew he could cook chicken well, from what I understand. That's all he when he sat down and thought what he was going to do, all he could do was cook chicken well. So he cooked chicken and he walked around to his neighbours until he could sell it. And look at the success. So let's all get on with life. Let's forget about our past. Let's all figure out what recipe are we good at? What can we cook up in this world to make a difference? Let's go out with a bang. Let's exert ourselves in every way we possibly can, sensibly and wisely, but with a childlike heart of fun and enthusiasm, and let's just love on people. Let's love them to death. Let's love these politicians to death until they get that sick and tired of their corruption. They want to let go what they're doing and come join us. We'll win Australia through genuinely loving and being kind and being patient and being understanding and being forgiving, especially to the police. The harder their positions are, the more, the tougher the job, naturally the more corrupt they've gone. Let's face it. What else could they have done? They're trying to cope under tremendous pressures of all kinds. They hardly get paid enough to make it worth their while. Any wonder they've gone and done a little of this and a little of that. It's not right. We can't tell them it's right, but we can say we understand. We understand, and we're going to give you a safe place. We choose to forgive you. We forgive. I made a decision a long time ago. I'm going to forgive by choice ahead of it happening. Anybody and everybody for anything they ever say or do to me. They could steal everything I own, let them have it. If they need it that badly, their life must suck far worse than any of yours or mine. Let them have it, for crying out loud. You know what? If you've got an old couch, whether you give it away or whether it's stolen, it leaves room for a bigger, better, more new couch. You might as well just thank them. At least you don't have to pay the tip fees. All right, guys, have an amazing day. Love you all. It's getting easier and easier to say it publicly, It's an amazing feeling. How hard is it to say to people, I love you? Admittedly, today's world, it's been very badly misused, but I think that's what happens. If something's a truth, then people who want to hide it, they have to try and dirty it. They try and bury it under all sorts of other disgusting things so that no one can find it. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm willing to dig it out and dust it off, polish it up and set it up somewhere high, let it shine like a candle on a lampstand. You know what I mean? Like a lamp on a lampstand. Let's be the best we can be. I don't want to be anything less. Take care, guys. Have an amazing day. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you all personally for it. Bye for now.